Hi, and welcome to the fourth of 5 presentations on the interwar period, that period of time between World War I and World War II. These are notes 13.1d, and this is, of course, Mr. Marks. While we've talked about how this time period was affecting India and China, how it affected the rest of Europe, the way that France was building its Maginot Line, and the last presentation focusing largely on this Great Depression that would hold the entire world in its grasp. There were also some amazing discoveries that were happening during this time that would change the way that we viewed our world. Of these many discoveries in science, I'm going to just hit on a few of the major ones. These are things that will change the way that people understand reality itself. Here we have Madame Curie, or Marie Curie. She will win 2 Nobel Prizes in science. She discovers that certain elements actually release charged particles which the human eye cannot detect except through elaborate experiments which are set up to show these things visually. This radioactivity showed that even atoms, the building blocks of our entire world and our existence, are not solid, that they're not indivisible, that they can change based off of circumstances and things. It also showed the dangers of radioactivity, as Marie Curie, whose hands would often end up being burned by the materials she handled, she will actually die of the radiation poisoning due to what it was that she was studying. And this will give us our first glimpse as to just how dangerous these materials can actually be. Another one of these revolutionary thinkers in this time is Albert Einstein, and one of my favorite pictures of him right there. In 1905, so this is actually before this interwar period, Albert Einstein is going to advance the theory in relativity. Okay, and actually, before I get there, he's going to understand that matter and energy are kind of one and the same. That if you take matter and if you split it up, you will release large amounts of energy, which if you take into account the radioactivity issues mentioned with Madame Curie, this suggests that energy can change to matter and matter into energy, and this is going to fuel both our technology and our weapons later on. His probably most famous equation, that E equals mc squared, is this understanding of the bounds of energy and matter and their relationship with each other. He is also going to come up with, as I mentioned before, his theory of relativity. This idea that measurements of space and time are not in fact constant, and they're actually affected by many factors, and some of these factors are not unknown. That there are many forces like gravity which can actually change the way that time itself moves forward. This is revolutionary, not only as our physical world not as stable as we thought, but time itself, this constant motion that we always we think of as dependable and something unchangeable, is actually not as straightforward as what we thought it was. These ideas are things about our world which even today people just do not fully comprehend. Just how ephemeral, how I'm not coming up with a good word with this, but the things which you think you can depend on are not as constant as you would truly think that they are. And while the last two were kind of more physical science or theoretical science, there were also discoveries of the mind. And during this time, we have Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud is going to suggest that even our minds do not work the way that we always thought that they worked. He's going to take in this idea that our subconscious mind is what I've said it now 3 times, is what drives much of human behavior. That you have this these different things which are below our level of understanding in our thought process itself. That we have the part of ourself, our superego that's out there, which other people can see, the face which we show to everybody else, and that we have an ego behind that, which we always know. We know is our true selves as far as we believe. He says that there's actually a deeper level, something that's deep into our unconsciousness, our id. This is our basest desires, those things which we think about, or we want, or we fear, but we're too concerned about society. We're too concerned about what other people might view us if they knew that we had these thoughts, or especially if we acted on those impulses. And he believes that most of society's problems are always due to this constant conflict between society and the id of people themselves. It's a continual tension between these powerful urges, these primal urges, and then the expectations of what society considers to be normal behavior or acceptable behavior. And our inability to kind of reconcile those two things is what will cause for most depressions, most psychotic breaks, most bouts of hysteria. And with this idea that if you could access a person's subconscious, if you could make it so the person could recognize what their problem was, or if a doctor could at least recognize it. And this is through means of sometimes hypnotism, or sometimes just getting the person to think back to their dreams. He believed dreams were the keys to understanding the human id. That you would be able to better understand people, and you'd be able to stop these problems from going on. This leads to the modern field of psychoanalysis. It's a method of studying how the mind works, and how to treat mental disorders. Freud believed that these dreams were really the key into it, so he often tried to set it up the kind of classic couch. He tried to set it up so a person would relax. They wouldn't be sitting straight up in a chair. They would relax on the couch or kind of on a bed in order to open their mind more to the subconscious level. And it's only through understanding our repressed memories, the things which we're afraid to think about, but our minds still remember and still do think about, especially in our daydreams, in our nightmares, that once we understand those, we'll understand people's true motivations. These 3 foundations in science are also going to change, they change the way we understand the world, so they're also going to change the way we respond to that world. And that is the key of the next presentation.